Good morning. My name is Colleen Kaiser, as Mark just mentioned, and I'm a PhD candidate at York University's Faculty of Environmental Studies. My work under Dr. Winfield includes a focus on collective action and subnational climate governance within the North American context. I want to thank Mark and York Sustainable Energy Initiative for inviting me to participate today. I hope my brief remarks will provide some academic framing for this important discussion around climate change and electricity system issues in Ontario and Quebec. 20 years after the first Conference of Parties in Berlin and the resulting birth of the Kyoto Protocol, the challenge of climate change has never been more pressing. The primacy of transitioning energy and electrification systems has been recognized as one of, if not the most critical part to any climate change solution. Decarbonizing electricity systems in industrial regions is no longer a question of if, but of when, how quickly, how comprehensively, by what means, and at what cost. There is also broad consensus that industrialized regions must take an aggressive lead in combating climate change, especially in the area of promoting and innovating clean energy technologies. Decarbonization of energy systems globally has been consistently, yet slowly, progressing over a number of decades. But at an average reduction rate of 0.3% per year, we are collectively nowhere near the pace required to avoid dangerous climate change. While leadership on climate and energy issues have stalled or lacked depth in terms of commitment at the national and international levels, subnational efforts have proliferated. Within the Canadian context, subnational initiatives have ranged from unilateral policy decisions, such as British Columbia's implementation of a carbon tax or Ontario's coal shutdown, to bilateral cooperation and alignment, such as the recent Memorandum of Understanding concerning climate actions between Ontario and Quebec. These more bottom-up approaches to climate governance have proven effective, especially when efficiency gains can be made through linkages within the wider multi-level climate governance regime. Increasingly, a diverse range of climate actions at the subnational level have been linking and harmonizing to various degrees, both vertically and horizontally. For example, in the North American context, efforts are underway to link carbon markets. Notably, the Western Climate Initiative illustrates recent bilateral cooperation between the governments of a handful of Canadian provinces and states. In this case, the gains from cooperation are evident. As more emitters enter in a system, the system becomes more cost-efficient in aggregate. Indeed, even at the international level, the benefits of including both top-down and bottom-up elements have been recognized and utilized in the design of the future binding UNFCCC agreement. Final negotiations happening in Paris in less than 1 year will be based on nationally determined emission reduction contributions. And these nationally appropriate contributions will ultimately be based on subnational efforts, and in the case of Canada, will largely depend on the trajectory of regional energy systems. In one of the last papers before her death, Nobel Prize winner Elinor Ostrom pointed out a more fundamental reason why subnational and local efforts are so important for successfully transitioning away from unsustainable development trajectories. She reminds us that ultimately change happens on the ground, at the local scale, making sufficient institutional capacity for climate governance at this scale crucial for effectively pursuing low-carbon transitions and implementing binding national and/or international climate policies whenever these may come along. In a recent Chatham House briefing, sufficient capacity for climate governance at this scale was also singled out as key to transition management efforts due to the innately highly interventionist nature of low-carbon policies. Effective harmonization of development trajectories towards a more resilient and sustainable state will not happen without meaningful and iterative dialogue and continued policy learning and adaptation. Workshops such as this, aimed at facilitating discussions between key state and non-state subnational actors, are critical to effectively and efficiently transitioning our economies in a low-carbon direction. If collective action theory has taught us one thing, it is that the importance of opportunities such as this, where meaningful conversation can be had and reciprocity built, cannot be understated. Sustained leadership from the provinces of Quebec and Ontario on climate change in the electricity system is essential for many reasons. At its minimum, to send a strong signal to domestic and regional markets that a low-carbon energy transition is indeed coming. Thank you.